Hello everyone, my name is Christine. I'm with Disability Action Center. Today's workshop is going to be on sex and sexuality education for people with disabilities. This is in collaboration with Alternatives to Violence of the Palouse. So in the presentation, we'll be covering, first off, how would you define sexuality, why learning about sexuality is important, especially for people with disabilities, common misconceptions, consent, boundaries, hygiene and sexual safety, and then healthy sexual or non-sexual relationships, and then unhealthy relationships. And then lastly, we'll end on sexual assault advocacy and an activity to go along with that. So what is sexuality? Sexuality is a word that's made up of a lot of different parts, and it doesn't just refer to sexual acts. So sexuality can refer to anatomy, so your physical body, your orientation, who you're attracted to, if anyone, your gender identity and your expression, just your relationships that you have, just the fact that you have relationships, your body image, your self-esteem, your confidence, pleasure, so that's what you like to do, what feels good, sexual behavior and activity, and then sexual and reproductive health. So I want to talk about the importance of sexual education for people with disabilities. Because people with disabilities are often taught to obey others at a young age and even into adulthood, their opinions and their choices may not be taken as seriously by the people around them, like their parents, their guardians, caretakers, personal assistants, medical staff, but also just, friends and the people that they enter into relationships with. But our opinions as children, as teens, and as adults do matter. And it's totally okay to ask questions. It's totally okay to learn about sex and sexuality because it's just a way for you to take control over your health and safety. People with disabilities can be left out of the conversation regarding sexuality, even though many of us have active and healthy sex lives, if we care to have one at all. Disabled folks are still desexed or thought to be without sexual interest or desire or undeserving of receiving it. We'll go through some myths and misconceptions, which will kind of cover why that thought might be prevalent. People with disabilities are also at a greater risk of being sexually abused. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics from 2017 to 2019, the rate of violent victimization against persons with disabilities is almost 4 times the rate for persons without disabilities. Sexuality education is not only important for people who are having sex, it's important for anyone with a body and the ability to, if they wanted to. Everyone has the rights to their own bodies, of course, but it can be hard to exercise those rights without being properly educated on them first. So here we are at common misconceptions. One myth is that people with intellectual or developmental disabilities have lower cognitive ages and therefore don't require sexual education. This is wrong for a couple reasons. One is that all ages require a certain degree of sexual education. It's just about matching what you're teaching to the age and what's relevant to the person at that age. And then also, regardless of a person's cognitive abilities, they can still tell when changes are occurring with their bodies. Changes that occur at the biological level, like hormonal changes, should still be explained in a way that meets the person's understanding. Another myth is that people with disabilities aren't interested in sex or in having sexual relationships. Again, this is false. Many people with disabilities are interested in sex, just like anyone else might be. Accommodations are made in every relationship, sexual or not sexual, regardless of if the individuals in that relationship are disabled or not disabled. Another myth, a person only needs sexuality education if they're having sex, or that sexuality education only encourages sexual behavior. This is false again for a number of reasons. Teaching someone about something does not encourage or guarantee that behavior. Sexuality education is not just about sex, so it's not only important to people having sex. So we'll go through boundaries and consent again. Consent is defined as giving permission for something to happen. This can be in relation to anything from sharing your food to giving a hug, holding someone's hand, and to any and all sexual activities. Consent matters in any context and should be freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. So that means you should be consenting without any pressure to feel like you should be consenting. You should be able to withdraw the consent at any point during the activity and have it be respected. Lights went off. Informed, that means that you should know what you're consenting to and know all of the conditions and know all the consequences. Enthusiastic, you should just be happy about giving your consent. If you're not happy about saying yes, then maybe you don't want to say yes. And specific. And then last thing, consenting to one thing does not mean you're consenting to everything at any time. So if you consent to hugging someone right now, that doesn't mean that an hour later you'll want to hug them again. That's another situation that would have to have its own consent talk. Having a relationship with someone, whether it's familial, so your family, romantic, or platonic would be, friends, family, that does not give them the right to ignore your boundaries, and your consent still matters. If your boundaries are violated, it's important to let a trusted person in your life know so that you can safely plan on what to do next. So let's talk about hygiene and sexual safety. So hygiene is what you do to keep clean and healthy. You can practice good reproductive hygiene by washing the area with water, wearing clean underwear. A lot of people recommend cotton because it's breathable. And then if you have a period, you should be changing your pads and your tampons pretty frequently, every 2 to 4 hours. If you leave a tampon in for too long, you could get something called toxic shock syndrome, which is extremely unpleasant and possibly deadly. Avoid using harsh soaps or products in or around your genitals. If the products that you're using are causing discomfort or irritation, any itching, burning, a rash, stop using it immediately. Or experiencing blood or discharge unrelated to a period, it might be time to reach out to a doctor and make an appointment. Again, if something just feels wrong, probably is. It's worth getting checked out. And then oftentimes people with disabilities are more aware of the feelings and changes in their bodies than those who aren't disabled. So listening to your body and monitoring and observing changes within or relating to your reproductive system is important for staying healthy. And then the second part of this, sexual safety, refers to safe sex practices. It also includes things like getting tested for STDs, which are sexually transmitted diseases, and then using birth control methods if you want to avoid getting pregnant, or also a lot of people use birth control just to control their hormones. So you can use birth control for a variety of reasons. The most common is probably to not get pregnant. There are many forms of birth control, so the pill, an implant, or an IUD. An IUD is an intrauterine device. It's placed directly inside the uterus, and the implant goes in the arm. Another thing to note is that birth control methods, including the pill, the IUD, the implant, these won't stop you from getting an STD. A condom will stop you from getting an STD. There are different types of condoms. Is probably the condom that you're familiar with, and there's also an internal condom, sometimes referred to as a female condom. Lastly, sexual safety doesn't just mean what you do while you're having sex. Sexual safety can also mean having sex only with people you know or otherwise trust in a consensual and positive way. This refers to who you're having sex with and also why. Let's move on to healthy sexual or non-sexual relationships. Now, in a healthy relationship, both partners communicate openly with each other. They're respectful of each other's boundaries. They trust each other because they're honest, and they're equals. They make choices together. They make mutual decisions. Your relationship shouldn't make you feel scared or ashamed. Your relationship, the person or people that you're with, shouldn't make you feel scared or unable to talk with the people who love and support you. If sex is a part of your relationship, it should never be the result of pressure or bullying. You shouldn't feel threatened or coerced into having sex, because again, that's not consensual. If you feel like you need to say yes and that's why you're saying yes, it's not a real yes. It's not consent. You should be able to say no and change your mind whenever you want, and your partner should immediately respect that decision without making you feel guilty or sad. An unhealthy sexual or non-sexual relationship, one or both partners may not communicate openly. They might communicate threateningly or dishonestly. They might not trust one another. One might be isolated from their friends or family. An unhealthy partner might control what you do and when, who you see, who you talk to, what you wear, what you eat, or have unfair power and control over you. This is another one that's pretty relevant to people with disabilities in any relationship. If someone has unfair power or control over you, that is a huge indicator that something is wrong. And you deserve to reach out to someone and talk about the issue and let someone know that this is happening. Reproductive coercion and control, so that would refer to forcing pregnancy, preventing the use of contraception. Contraception refers to birth control, condoms, things that prevent pregnancy, or forcing abortion or forcing pregnancy. And then threatening to leave or harm a partner if they don't comply with the demands. Other abusive characteristics, threats, isolation, manipulation, these are all behaviors that indicate that something is wrong. Sexual violence refers to sexual activity or sexual acts that are unwanted or that happened without consent. Sexual violence includes sexual assault and sexual abuse. It's important to remember that no one should be interacting with you sexually unless you've communicated your consent, your permission. No one, regardless of their intent or their relationship with you, like we said before, should be touching your private parts without your express consent and your permission. Again, this includes romantic partners as well as your friends, parents, caregivers, caseworkers, medical professionals, teachers, and of course, strangers. If someone has interacted with you sexually or has touched your private parts without your permission or your consent, remember first that it's not your fault. This is something that they have done. It's not something that you invited. Sometimes you might be hesitant to report the event because of your relationship with the person or because of your relationship with the people you would have to report it to. Sometimes it can go on for years, sometimes it happens once, but in any case, your experience still matters, and there's always someone that you can talk to about it. Reporting it, you can report it to the police, but if some reason, if this option doesn't work for you, there are still other things that you can do. You can tell a trusted and safe individual about what happened, like a friend or a family member are common choices. You can take advantage of local resources, national resources like hotlines, but most importantly, just remember that you always have the power over your own body. No matter what happens, no one can take that away from you. And this is a good segue into sexual self-advocacy because this refers to your ability to communicate your preferences, your desires, your concerns, and your opinions, and being confident in doing so. And being confident that you're able to navigate situations where you might feel pressured or disrespected or hurt. And to practice sexual self-advocacy skills is the same as practicing any self-advocacy skills, and that's just by communicating how you feel, the things that you like, what you don't like. And you can practice this in really everyday, like small situations, and then work your way up to bigger situations that might be more stressful or are a little more like serious. It just starts by communicating how you feel, but doing so in a way that is assertive, not passive, and not aggressive. Being assertive means you're standing up for your own thoughts, your opinions, your values, your feelings, but you're not hurting anyone else in the process. You're not offending anyone else in the process. You're standing up for yourself, but you're still being considerate of others while you're doing it. Here's a little activity that might be able to help or is just nice. Write down some positive affirmations related to body autonomy and sexuality acceptance and put them in places that you might see them often. There are some pretty popular choices here. I deserve to be safe and healthy. My body is my own. I deserve respect. I'm comfortable with my sexuality, and I deserve healthy relationships. These are all great little messages to remind yourself of throughout the day. And even if you struggle to believe it when you're first writing it down or the first few times you see it, the more you see it and the more you repeat it in your head, the more you will believe it. And it is true, your body is your own. You do deserve respect. But these are things that after, years and years of negative self-talk and by internalizing the things that we might hear or perceive from other people, these are ideas that can sometimes get lost. We might not really believe them. And then last but not least, resources. I have one article from Teen Vogue that has a bunch of different experiences from a bunch of different disabled college students. I believe it's college students, might be high school students too, but mostly college students and their experiences with sex and sexuality and just being a young adult and living in that world, The National Sexual Assault Hotline, so this is a national one, this covers all the states in America, anyone can reach out to this, is rainn.org, that's RAINN, 2 N's, .org. And they have a number that you can reach out to, a hotline that you can talk to confidentially about what's happened. They also have a bunch of other resources about navigating abuse or assault. And then local support, of course, ATVP, us, Disability Action Center, and then the Idaho Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence. That would be atvp.org, dacnw.org, and then idahocoalition.org. The most important thing to remember is that learning about sexuality is always okay, and it's always okay to ask questions, because it's just to help you be as safe and have as much control over your body and your choices as you can. It's meant to empower you. There's always a resource out there. There are always people who are very enthusiastic to teach about this kind of thing and to share this kind of information. So don't give up on your search. Don't give up on your own empowerment and your own independence, because it is always possible. Again, this was in collaboration with Alternatives to Violence of the Palouse. I will see you next month. Thanks so much for watching.